Hey everyone, in this video we're going to talk about how to set up Google reCaptcha v3 with a Flask application. So before we get started, I just want to point out under this video in the description there's going to be a link to a GitHub repository where you can find all the code and everything we're going to be doing today. There are some more advanced things, but overall the entire code is going to be there. Okay, so let's get started. In our app.py, this is where I'm going to create our Flask application. So from Flask, import Flask, and also I know I'm going to need render template. If you don't have the Flask package installed already, just open up a new terminal, type pip3 if you're using Python 3, install Flask with a capital F, press enter, and your package is going to be installed. For me, I already have it, so it didn't install again. Okay, let's get started with our app. So app equals Flask underscore name underscore. There we go. And then at the bottom, we're going to start our application. So if underscore name underscore equals underscore main underscore. Then what we're going to do is app.run, and I'm going to set debug equals true, just so if we have any errors, we can see them. Of course, in production, you wouldn't leave debug equals true. It's just for us. If there is anything that's not working, then we'll be able to see it right away. Okay, so now before I start our first route and where we're going to have our contact form, I'm just going to set our secret key because we are going to need it to enter a CSRF token that is needed on every single form using Flask and Flask form. So just set that up right now, secret key, and we're going to have that set up to my secret key. Of course, that's not really secret or secure. It's just right now that will be enough. For a real live application you're going to push into production, you would want to save this secret key variable in some environment variable somewhere and have something a little more secure than just a string that says my secret key. Okay, let's make our route. Route. And this is going to accept a post methods, a post and get methods, both of them, because we're going to have also form submissions on that page, post and get. And we are going to define our function. And for now, all of this function is going to do is going to return render template, and it's going to render contact.html. I already created the file before. It's just an empty file. As you can see here, there's nothing in the body. It's just a title here, just so we can see that everything is working correctly. So from here, if I already run our application, you can see it says where it's running. So if I come back here and I refresh this page, as you can see, our body now has a background color that I set up, and also have the title here that is working correctly, Google reCaptcha v3. So we can see that our template is rendered correctly. Okay, so now what do we need to do here? Well, we're going to create our form, and we're going to display this form on our HTML page. So I'm going to come to form.py. I just want to have the form in a different page. So from Flask underscore WTF, we are going to import Flask form. And we're only going to have one field in this one. Is going to be a string field. So from WT forms, I'm going to import string field. Again, if you're having squiggly lines here under your packages because they have not been installed, just open up your terminal again, pip3 install flask-wtf, spelled like this, press enter, and your package is going to be installed. Okay, so now we're going to create our class. So class, I'm just going to call it contact form. This is going to extend Flask form. And we're just going to have one field. So I'm going to keep it very simple. This is going to be a string field. From here, we're going to set up our name. Well, it's going to be name for this one. And then I just want to display a placeholder, have a placeholder on the form. So I'm just going to do render keywords argument. And here you can pass an object. Here we're going to pass placeholder, and we're going to set that to name. Okay, and since we have just a very easy form with just one field, this is all we're going to write. But if you have a more complicated form, you can also have email field, passwords, and you can have phone numbers or whatever it is, or a text area. For us right now, we're just going to have this. So I'm going to come back to our app.py, and since we have a form in a different file, I'm just going to import it here. So from form, we are going to import contact form. Okay, so now I'm going to come to our function and actually create an instance of that contact form. So form equals contact form. And now I'm going to pass that to our contact.html. As you know, in render template, you can pass variables. So I'm going to pass a variable called form, and this is going to be set to, it's kind of weird to look at it, form equals form, but this is the variable we are passing, and here we're passing it the form that we just created. So now if I come back to our contact.html, here I'll be able to use that form that we just passed. So I'm going to create a form element. I'm going to come back to the action and everything else later. But now what do? We need the CSRF token because we're using a form. So here we're just going to use form.csrf underscore token. This is going to be a hidden field, so you won't, this field here will not display on the page. It's just going to be hidden. And then here we also going to have form.name, which is the only field that we have so far on our page. Action, because we're going to send a validation to the same contact here function. I'm just going to use the same as we have before. And here the method for this is going to be a post method. Okay, and now just like that, we should be able, if we run the application again, we should be able to see the field. There we go, it's already filled with something. There's a field here, our name field. Again, I added very minimal styling, so it looks like this and not just a default styling where it's just white background and in the top left looking a little bit ugly. So now we have just basic styling applied to it. Okay, so now that all that is set up, what we need to do is we need to get some keys from Google, more specifically a side key and a secret key. So to get those, we are going to visit just Google reCaptcha and open up the first link here. When you're on that page, you can visit v3 admin console. So here I already have one for a different site, but I'm just going to create a new one. Label, I'm just give it your website name, whatever it is, just a label that you can reference and you know which one it is in case you have multiple keys saved. The type, so it's going to be v3, the one that happens completely in the background. As you can see, if I move myself, here, this little logo is going to appear on our page, meaning it is enabled, and the v3 is in the background, which means it's not a box that we have to check, like I'm not a robot, or we don't have to click on the images. Everything is in the background, and the user doesn't have anything to do. The domain, because right now we are developing on our local machine, I'm just going to copy this. If you ever push that into production, here you can have, mydomain.com or whatever other domain you're using. Just enter a list of domains here. Just make sure you don't leave this one, your local domain IP, when you actually push it to production. But here you can enter a list of domains. When I click submit, we're going to see here that we are given a site key and a secret key. So I'm going to copy the site key. I'm going to paste it here in a file, the separate file, so it's not in our app.py. Ideally, again, those variables would be saved as environment variable. For our purpose here, I'm just going to copy that in a separate Python file. And then the secret key, the site key is going to be visible on our client side. So on our form, anyone can actually see the site key, but the secret key is what you want to keep secret, as the name implies. So just make sure you save that somewhere safe. And this is why it's blurred here. But even though I'm going to delete this, so it doesn't really matter that it's showing or not, but just make sure this here, at least the secret key, is saved as an environment variable. Okay, so now we're going to come back to our app.py, and since we have those keys in a separate file, I'm just going to import them. So from Google keys, I'm going to import Google site key and Google secret key. Okay, and now that we have that set up, let's go and check the documentation to see what else we need to do here to make this work. So if I check v3 documentation, it's a 3-step process. So first, we need to load the JavaScript API. So I'm just going to copy this script tag here, come to our contact.html, and before our closing body tag, I'm going to paste this one in. And then we need to add a callback function to handle the token. So again, another script tag that we're gonna come and put just at the bottom here. And if you quickly read through the code here, what we see, this is a function that happens on submit, so when the form is going to be submitted. And this function calls for document that get element by ID. Here we have some form of ID, and then that's submit, the submit method. And so here what we need to do is make sure that our form actually has that ID, because otherwise we don't really know which element on the page we're selecting. And that submit method is not going to apply to anything because we don't have a form with that specific ID. So here you can name it whatever you want. So here I can do actually contact that form if I want to, but all I need to do is make sure that the ID on our form actually matches this. So here I'm just going to copy and paste the exact same ID. Okay, so that's all good. And then the third step is add attributes to the HTML button. So because we're using Google reCaptcha, I didn't actually in our form.py, I didn't create a new submit button. And as you can see here on our page, there is no button right now to submit the form. So what I'm going to do is just copy the button that Google gives us here. And I'm going to insert that below our form.name field. Okay. And now here, again, if you read through the code quickly, so we have a class that is already applied. We have a data, that site key, which is the key that we have and we need to pass here. And we have data callback, which is on submit. As we can see, the function is defined at the bottom, and then the action is submit. So here, what we need to do is actually pass the site key that we just generated from Google and pass it here as the data.site key. So what I'm going to do, since I have it here in our app.py, I'm just going to pass it just like I pass form. So site._key equals Google reCaptcha site key. Oh, I'm going to remove those spaces. There we go. So now we are able to access this site key directly from here. So here I'm going to do double curly braces and site key. Okay. Let's come back here, run our application again, refresh our page, and now two things happen. So one, we have the submit button that is showing up here, and two, as you can see at the bottom, we have this little protected by reCaptcha little pop-up thing that slides in and out, which means that so far everything is set up correctly and should work just fine. Okay, so now what happens when here somebody enters something? So far, nothing. If we come back here, nothing happened. Okay, so we're gonna check for that submit and we're gonna see if the submit was correct or not. So here, I'm gonna check for a submission. So if form.validate on submit, so when the form is submitted, what do we want to do? Well, if we go back to the documentation from Google and we go to the bottom and we need to make the request to verify the response token. If we open this, we can see here how we can verify the response and see if this is a legit submission or if it was made by a robot. So how do we do that verification? As we can see here, we need to make an API request. We have the URL here. I'm going to copy this. And we have two required parameters and one optional. We have a secret parameter that is required, and we have a response. The secret is the secret key that we generated when we created our site key and secret key, and the response is something we're going to get from the form submission. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to save up here Google the verify URL as a variable. Okay, and so here we need to actually go and make that that API call to verify the response. And as I mentioned, we have two things to pass. We have the secret key that we already have, and we need what they call the response. And the response is actually, you can actually get it from using secret response. And this is going to be equals to request.form. And then here is going to be reCaptcha reCaptcha. Oh, we can type CAPTCHA response. There's a mistake here. It's actually not g-captcha-response. It's g-reCaptcha-response. As you can see here is g.reCaptcha response. Okay, now we have a squiggly line under request because I have not yet imported that. So it's part of the Flask package. I'm just going to import request, and as you can see, our request now is correct. Okay, so now we're going to actually verify the response. So verify underscore response equals requests that post. And before I go any further, we can see request is not imported, so I'm going to import requests. There we go. And then here, what do we have? So we have a URL parameter to pass here, and because it is the verify URL plus the secret response plus our secret key, where I'm going to use an F string here. So this is going to be Google verify URL. And then here we're going to pass a couple of parameters. So as we saw in Google, on the Google page, one is called secret. So secret equals, this is the secret key, Google CAPTCHA secret key. And we are going to also pass in the response, and response equals, and so this is the secret response. Okay, now let's actually print this and see what it gives us. Print verify response. Okay, I'm going to run this, come back on our page here, and I'm going to click submit. Oh, and we have an error. There's a bad request, so probably have a little issue somewhere in our code. Let me quickly go through it. Oh yeah, here, g-captcha, it's actually reCaptcha. So let's try this again. We're going to print our verify response. I'm just going to come back here and submit my name. If I click submit, as you can see, nothing happened here. And if we go back here, we have the secret response, which is this extremely long string. And then we have our verify response that is A200. So everything went correctly. So I'm just going to delete this. And to actually see the response, it's a response object. So we need to actually add a JSON method here. So I'm just going to run that again, submit this form again. And now what we can see a response we got from Google. It's this object here. It says, so success, true. Then we have sometimes the host, the URL, and we have a score, and we have the action. So here is actually two things we're going to check for to verify that this was submitted by a human. First is going to be the success. It has to be true. If it's false, it means if it's a falsely value, then the submission was not correct, and we should not proceed with the data that was passed. And then the second one is score here, 0.09. So what we're going to do, add just a quick check here, and we're going to check for if not verify response, that success, spelled like this, which means if this is false, or if we have verify response, that score, which is inferior to 0.5 is usually a good cutoff to determine that this was not made by a human. Then if this is not verified, then we're going to do an abort 401. Just going to be quick here. We might want to do something else with the data. For us, I'm just going to send back a 401 code, and then here I'm just going to import abort. So if I run this and if I submit our form, as you can see, nothing went wrong because this success is true and the score is 0.9. If not, for example, just to test, I remove the not and we check if verify response success is true, which is going to be, then we should have the abort 401. So I'm going to come back here, submit it. As you can see, we are not unauthorized. Okay, so this is working well. And this is actually pretty much everything we need to do. At this point, if we have aborted, then nothing is going to go through. And if the verify response success is correct and the score is superior to 0.5, then here we can do whatever we want with that data. If we want to submit it and add it to our database, if we want to send an email with the contact form information, whatever it is we want to do, here is the place to do that. So here, if I just print success and run that again, we should see that as I'm a human, I'm going to click on submit. Nothing's going to happen. As you can see here, we still have the verify response that is being printed, and we also have our success. So at this point, you do whatever you want with that data. And if we go back to the, for example, the GitHub repository that I have here that you can have a look at, what I'm doing in this one, if I open up app.py, after doing our form validate and submit, we are verifying the response here by sending a post request to this URL. Again, the abort 401 if this is not correct. Otherwise, here in this instance, I'm actually sending an email using Flask mail. I'm sending all of that information that was passed in the contact form. So for us, we only had a name, but in this example here, I have a name, an email, a phone, and a message form field. So I'm just going to pass all of that into an email that I'm going to send to recipients. Here it's an array of recipients. I have my email username to set up Flask mail, and then I'm just going to send this email with all the contact form information. So that's pretty much how everything works. Again, this GitHub repository is available in the description of this video. Have a look, play around with this, and if you find any mistakes or if there's anything I can change, just please let me know in the comments down below. Or if you have any questions as well, feel free to post them there, and I'll make sure to respond to you as soon as I can. All right, bye.